On Friday, I was supposed to publish a video about peer review. At 3:30 on Sunday, I did an editorial pass of the 30-minute-ish long script and made about 10 pages of cuts. When I was done, I had a blinking cursor and a file name left. It is now 11 p.m. on Thursday, and I have written something else. I had a deadline for that video, by the way, because I'm a PhD student studying communication, and I am taking an independent study this semester on video essays as a scholarly form. I am TX Watson, and my university has asked me not to name it in public appearances. I was supposed to make 3 videos this semester. This one was supposed to be 3rd. It's the one where I was meant to, take the lessons from the previous 2 and build them together and talk about the point of doing any of this shit. And the point is, the Academy has completely lost the plot on what published work is supposed to do. The structure of papers works on fucking cargo cult logic, and nobody can get more than 3 sentences into a conversation about what the various parts are supposed to do without turning into a fucking crypto bro. Nah, man, you gotta trust the process. Just hold on and it'll all pay off. If you don't understand it, you just haven't learned enough. You'll get it when you're more experienced. You're really showing how inexperienced you are by having these criticisms. You shouldn't talk about it so much. You're going to make people think you're an idiot. You don't want everyone else to think you're an idiot, do you? So keep it to yourself. Be smart. Buy in. Peer review is first on my list because peer review puts an unfathomable amount of normative pressure on the way that information is presented, and nobody's managed to prove that it works. But that's another video, because every time I try to write that video, I run face first into the same problem I've had with everything I've written for grad school so far. Who am I supposed to be writing this for? I don't have that problem with this video because I'm making it for my friend Cecilia, and I don't give a fuck who else likes or understands it. I told my advisor a couple months ago that I'm not going to drop out of grad school, because if I drop out now, then I'm going to spend the rest of my life talking shit about the Academy. And if I'm going to spend the rest of my life talking shit about the Academy, it's not going to be because I gave up when it got hard. Because it is hard. It's so hard, and it's hard for such stupid reasons. It's hard because I'm surrounded by professors and other students, smart, critical people who work so hard to see the complexity and the depth in the world, who reckon with institutional and systemic biases, and who make real sacrifices and take real risks to do the right thing. But when I ask them questions about the structure of the Academy, nearly all of them mutate before my eyes into a 75-year-old British man who jerks off to Rudyard Kipling. I swear to God, someone should study it as a dissociative disorder. It's wild how quickly people pivot from compassion to condescension. There are kind of 2 ways to learn something: instruction and experimentation. And I'm learning a lot by instruction in grad school. I'm learning the history and major works of my field and adjacent fields. I'm learning how to do research. I'm learning so much about how fucked up this industry is. I am not learning how to write. Because talking about the fact they're not really teaching us to write is one of the things that turns my professors into a guy who still calls the US and Australia the colonies. But that's fine. I know how to learn to write. You just run experiments and see how it went with your target audience. So who's my target audience here? Well, the thing I'm trying to do in this video is explain as clearly as possible the purpose I see in this independent study, which is also approximately what I intend to do with my dissertation. And the people to whom I need to communicate that information are my committee. My committee, which is made up of professors in my program, who may be offended by the joke about them turning into a culturally chauvinistic British man. I could make this for them, in theory, and it could work. These professors in particular don't seem to have dissociative episodes when I talk to them about the work I want to do. But, didn't that bit feel kind of weak to you? That question's for Cecilia. The rest of you, I don't care. That bit's no fun to perform. It was no fun to write. And if I wrote a whole video like that, the only watchable thing about it would be getting to see the light behind my eyes physically strangled by my social anxiety. It's a weird experience to try to explain to your friend what you're doing in grad school and know that you sound like you're in an abusive relationship. Yeah, he gaslights me about my interests, but there are good days. Look, these 4 professors are so supportive. And I know that he's trying. He wants to be better. He's just scared to do the hard parts. He's under a lot of stress at work right now. They're facing big budget cuts. And I can't just leave when things get hard. Well, I can't hold his trauma against him. He was raised really patriarchal and conservative, and he's still trying to unpack that. Besides, he's paying my bills. Yeah, I know. I had a job before, and it was paying me enough, but he wanted me to give it up so that I could focus on us. I know that he wants to be better. I think I can fix him. And Cecilia's a good friend. She knows you don't just abandon someone in a bad relationship because they're not ready to leave yet. If I left now, I'd probably go back to my ex. TikTok. Oh, look, a citation. What an elegant and appropriate segue to the discussion on academic formalism. Typical academic works have a whole bunch of structural and affective properties in common. They'll be more rigid in some fields and looser in others, and occasionally a particular field or a particular work will override them entirely. Citations are one of these. They're structural. Other common structural ones include abstracts, discussion sections, methods. Graphs and charts are structural. Being behind a publisher paywall is structural. Going through a peer review process is structural. The library of affects, scholarly works tend to borrow from include serious, rigorous, expert, objective, and a bunch of other shit. And I have not received, to my satisfaction, instruction on any of these, except prose. I've had one professor who did prose very seriously. It was really basic, but that's kind of where the class was at. So I remember at some point in my first semester having a conversation with a classmate, and I said, it feels like I came to car school to become a mechanic, and I have discovered that they only do driver's ed. And listen, there's nothing wrong with driver's ed. If you want to get somewhere, knowing how to drive a car is a good way to do that. I want to know how the car works, so I'm taking it apart. Hashtag deconstruction, baby! These videos are experiments. And you guys, there's so many things to experiment about. This one's an experiment in audience. Arguably, it's an experiment in Charles Morris's fourth persona, which I am name dropping here for no particular reason whatsoever. And I'm going to do so many experiments in so many ways. The videos coming out of this independent study, I'm just like breaking in the concept so they're not that specific in what they're trying to accomplish. As I get more of a handle on it, I want to start actually designing experiments with specific intent, isolating particular features of academic prose so that I can see what they do to the work as a whole. Like, I've heard a whole bunch of times from all over the discursive landscape that the reason academic texts are like that is because they need to be technical because experts read them faster and comprehend them more easily that way. And you guys, that claim is so testable. Like, this is experimental art, but you could study that with science. Most of what I'm doing here is not science, because most of the stuff that I want to study, you can't do science about. Trying, for example, to isolate and study the concept of rigor would be an intensely interpretive act. Nothing about that research wouldn't be damningly subjective from a scientific perspective. Nonetheless, were I to do it, I would come to understand things about the concept of rigor that I didn't before, and it is likely that people who watch the video would also figure out some things about what rigor is doing. But I'm not just planning on a big pile of experiments. Ultimately, I've got to put all this together into something, which is great news because I'm a grad student, which means I need to write a dissertation. The bad news is that dissertations are pretty fucking conventionally shaped. Non-standard dissertations are like a thing, but a professor once told me that students shouldn't pursue non-standard dissertations unless and until their committee knows how they would evaluate it. And that professor is on my committee, so here's my pitch. The base plan is a standard dissertation. The experimental shit will not be the text of the dissertation, it will be the subject. Should that vision change at any point, it will be because I have achieved the clarity necessary to identify the functions affected by the deviation and point to the ways that the deviant material can be evaluated to have satisfied or perceptibly failed to satisfy those functions. I will then only proceed with the deviation on the condition that my committee agrees that the deviant material satisfies all functions worth satisfying in a way that they are capable of evaluating. Got all that, Cecilia? Okay, cool. Now, how do I say any of that to my committee? You're about to see my Patreon supporters scroll by here, and I want to thank them all for their support. I also want to thank the 3 groups of people who've watched this video. First, my committee. I do genuinely think I found 4 people who I can talk to about my interests and goals without getting gaslit. I hope this video has helped explain why I've had so much trouble talking about it anyway. It's not a lack of clarity about what I want to do. It's frequent bad experiences with people who had otherwise earned my trust not to be condescending or dismissive. My struggles in grad school have so far been almost exclusively emotional, and it's such a risk when I'm already struggling to center myself enough to do the work to go to someone for help who has the power to make it worse by giving me a canned response. Thank you for listening to me and responding to the things I actually say. Second, Cecilia. Sup. And third, to everyone else. The voyeuristic freaks watching an intensely personal conversation between 2 close friends just because it's posted publicly to YouTube, structured like a general audience video essay, and shared to all of my social media. I just have one thing to say to you, sick motherfuckers. I love you. please back me on Patreon. I'm not financially stable now, which definitely doesn't help with the aforementioned emotional issues. And when I graduate, I'm not going to have a job waiting for me. I'm going to be doing this. And for a long time, I've been ashamed to ask for more help than it takes to not literally starve. But I've been thinking lately that it would be nice to have a retirement plan or be able to start a family or to know for sure that I'm going to be able to eat consistently for 2 months in a row. If you want to help make this work happen and you've got $5 or $10 a month you can spare, your help would mean the world to me. There's a long way to go before a little bit more money won't make a big difference in my life. It's now past midnight, so it is Monday. Monday is the day that I said I was going to try and get the video out once I knew I had to push it from Friday. So I guess I'm editing now.